Julie, we all learned yesterday that at the age of 100, the 39th President of the United States, James Earl Carter, had passed away. It's impossible to say that this was sudden news. He's been in hospice for over a year, 100 years old. The last images we saw of him right around Election Day, he obviously was in his final days. And,
yes.
He did pass away, and moments like this require some reflection and some respect, but also some reality with regard to somebody's legacy, especially when they're a public figure and a former president. That's why we're happy to have Craig Shirley here, a presidential historian and an author of many best-selling books about President Ronald Reagan. And Craig, first of all, Happy New Year and Merry Christmas. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you. Happy New Year.
It is kind of impossible to talk about President Carter's presidency and his legacy without mentioning Ronald Reagan, right? I mean, he really did. I mean, the two of them sort of go hand in hand.
Yes, they do. They represent, a different era in American politics, American culture. For 17 years, from the time of JFK's assassination till 1980, we went through Watergate, we went through gas lines, we went through Vietnam, we went through the assassinations of RFK and Martin Luther King Jr., and it was really, those 17 years were a terrible time, including the Carter presidency. We had high inflation, we had Iranian hostages, we had long gas lines, we had Soviets invading Afghanistan. It was really a bad time for the United States. And Ronald Reagan's election signaled a new era, a new way of looking at the world, a new way of looking at the economy, a new way of looking at life and the government. And it really ushered in a whole new era and left Carter behind. That doesn't mean that Carter, I don't want to be harsh here, like the ancient Greeks said, nisi bonum, which is don't speak ill of the dead.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be. His presidency was uneven. That's the way I can put it charitably. But he did have some good achievements. He did introduce human rights, which hadn't been introduced before, to the international foreign policy debate, and he did produce the highly durable Camp David Accords.
And listen, I don't think it's speaking ill of the dead about Jimmy Carter as a person to focus an uncritical eye, or a critical eye, I should say, on his policies and his achievements or lack thereof.
I agree with that. I agree with that. Is that he was a superb individual. He's a Christian. He was devout in his faith. He was uncorruptible. He made mistakes as president. He had failures as president, but he had a superb post-presidency with building homes for the poor and with charitable works and traveling the world for peace and writing books and winning the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, he had a standard by which all other presidents should follow.
Well, I don't know if I totally agree with that. He had 18 years to reread his 2006 book, Palestine, Peace, Not Apartheid, and to revisit his position on Israel, and he didn't. And I think that what he did there, Peace, Not Apartheid, suggesting Israel as an apartheid state, really harmed the Middle East, and it has led to some degree to what we see from the activists today. What are your feelings on his position on Israel and that book that he wrote?
I think he had mixed feelings about Israel. I remember in the 80 campaign, he was accused of being Arabist, and he was harsh on Israel, no doubt about it. With the Camp David Accords, he made them give up the conquered lands they won from Egypt in the 1967 war. And there was a lot of people who thought, and in fact, that was a real problem in the 80 campaign, his problem with the American Jewish vote and how many Jewish leaders were supporting Ronald Reagan because they perceived him as being stronger on the issue of Israel than Carter was. There's no doubt about that was a problem, that he had a somewhat blind eye toward Israel, that he had a problem with Israel, and that followed through.
Yeah. Mainstreaming and legitimizing the notion that the state of Israel was equivocal to apartheid, I think, was incredibly damaging. And it's frankly, I think the Democrats, and they're still holding on to that messaging today.
I can't believe that I'm defending Jimmy Carter.
Well, it's funny. I get that.
I know, because I'm a conservative, but I don't want to judge harshly for for one thing, it was very, very bad thing for him to say about Israel. Very pro-Israel, very pro-Bush state. But that bothers me a lot. On the other hand, is that in the whole context of this 100 years, I don't think we can judge him based on that one thing.
I agree. I hear that. I do.
You have to take the whole totality of the man.
And
the whole totality of
listen, as a graduate of the Naval Academy, and the only Naval Academy graduate to become President of the United States, obviously I'm a big fan of that institution, and so there's always going to be that. But I got to say, it's funny, Craig Shirley is our guest, who is a author of multiple best-selling biographies of President Reagan. We are affording, as conservative Republicans, Craig Shirley, and as fans of Ronald Reagan, big-time fans of Ronald Reagan, we are affording Jimmy Carter respect and deference that Lord knows he and other Democrats and liberals in the media did not afford President Reagan when he passed away, which I think is rather ironic because, boy, they didn't hesitate to wring their hands and sort of bend over backwards and try to be respectful. They were horrible to Reagan after he died. Oh, did we lose Craig? Oh, we sure did, and we were worried that we would lose his. Well, trust me on that. Craig would have agreed with me. Oh, there he is. Go ahead, Craig.
I wrote a book, Reagan's post-presidency, and how the left eviscerated him.
Yes.
Even in the week of his passing, they eviscerated Reagan. Reagan, his legacy, Reagan personally. They said the most mean, awful, terrible things about his capacity, his mental acuity, his ability, the success or failure of his presidency. They said terrible things about him. I don't think we should do likewise. I don't think Carter made mistakes, and in the fullness of time, when the ground is cooled and we judge him, he will with a clear eye. We will judge him to be that he was an honest, decent, moral man, but he was a failed president. But he was a very good post-president.
Craig Shirley, thank you so much for joining us. By the way, we're doing a whole lot of year-end reviews, and I'm seeing a lot of lists. The biopic of Reagan, which, of course, not read Craig Shirley's books if you really want the Reagan story. But I thought it was well done. I thought it was a good depiction.
It was well. There's a good reason why it was well done, because I was the historical advisor on that movie.
I didn't know that. I didn't even see your name in the credits. Well, well done, you, Craig.
I'm in the credits.
And let me tell you, it is making a lot of top 10 lists for popularity streaming. It's done very well in its streaming life. It did very well at the box office, for that matter. Made some money, and it's gotten pretty good ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. It's a good movie.
Yes.
So,
but it's a great schism between the elites who trashed it and the everyday, common sense Americans who loved it.
Of course.
That speaks to the schism that we have in America today, more pronounced than at any other time in our lives.
Amen, brother. Thank you, Craig. Always great to talk with you. Happy New Year, sir.
Happy New Year, Larry. Thank you.